And this one was Orlovsky yesterday here talking about the Steelers quarterback situation. Listen.
Could you imagine if they just sit there right now, knowing that the Saints have maybe a little bit more of a need than they did a week ago, and the Saints take the guy that they want, the quarterback that they want, and the Steelers are just sitting there at 21, and they don't get the opportunity to take a quarterback, and then Rodgers comes out a day or two after, a week after, and says, I'm going to retire, I'm done playing football. Could you imagine what it would be like in Pittsburgh? They would lose their minds.
Well, so let's start with RC on that, because we got to get to the bottom of what's actually happening. 9 becomes another pressure point in this draft based upon this news that is murky, to say the least. But, RC, let's just start with that in general. You are our beloved former Steeler. The Aaron Rodgers thing, what? I mean, when is this thing going to get decided, and what does it all mean?
I mean, it makes me sick, to be honest. Unless Omar, the general manager, Omar Khan of the Pittsburgh Steelers, has some sort of promise or some sort of lean on Aaron Rodgers, believing that he is going to come back and play football. And if he does make that decision, he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. I feel like this has been mishandled already. I feel like to be waiting, right, or to be held hostage by a former quarterback of the New York Jets that's actually never done anything for you. What has Aaron Rodgers done in the last 2 years or since leaving Green Bay that says he should be afforded this type of time? That says that you should give him the sort of respect that keeps your franchise at bay. When I think about this decision, to me, it doesn't matter what happens going forward. I think it's been a bad play by the Pittsburgh Steelers already. And so I would give Aaron Rodgers a deadline. And when I give him that deadline, it wouldn't lead me into next week. I would need to know if you're coming back to play or not this week. And more importantly, if you're coming back to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I get it, and I understand why you say that. The problem is that every deadline or every threat has to have an or else on the other side of it. The Steelers don't have an or else. They don't have another. What are they, and Aaron is going to say, and then what are you going to do? If I decide 2 weeks from now I want to play, you're not going to bring me in? Like, they're kind of stuck. So, RC, I think your initial point.
I wouldn't.
That maybe they've already mishandled the situation is a good one. That said, Jeff, what the actual heck is going on now with New Orleans and Derek Carr? Because I can't make heads or tails of whatever it is I'm trying to happen here.
Greeny, I've been thinking all morning about how to talk about this because, quite frankly, you know, I've been at the Masters all week, and I'm just going to take you into my mind right now. I go to the Masters. I'm kind of out of touch with the NFL world. I come back, and all of a sudden, I'm saying, okay, we're going to talk about Derek Carr. Oh, shoulder injury. What's this shoulder injury? What happened to Derek Carr? Well, nobody knows. Nobody. Shoot out some text. Start asking around. Well, there's really no answers from anybody inside the Saints. Not really any answers from anybody with Derek Carr either. I actually reached out to somebody who interviewed with the Saints, who was up for that same head coaching job, to say, did they express any concern about Derek Carr? The person told me, no, actually, Derek Carr was kind of their plan at starting quarterback. I say this all to you because this is as peculiar as a situation for a franchise quarterback and an organization to be in at this point with the draft upcoming and the 9th overall pick. And quite frankly, when it comes to a situation where there is a player dealing with some kind of injury and we don't have the details and the team is being a little bit elusive on it and the player isn't saying exactly what it is, I have never, in my career, 20 years covering the NFL, seen that work out well. And quite frankly, I don't think this is going to work out well either. So if the Saints have a quarterback at number 9 overall that they believe in, they should go ahead and take him. And by the way, I believe they will go ahead and take them.
All right, that is well done. So that brings us then, Peter, to the $82 billion question, which is, does this mean Shedeur Sanders is going to New Orleans at 9?
I mean, let's just address the elephant in the room here. This is bizarre, as Jeff is describing. And the Saints opened camp this week because they have a new head coach in Kellen Moore. And I think they were under the impression that Derek Carr was their quarterback. And then this thing comes out. Let's just 9 days out. Like, is this the Shedeur Sanders draft? Every question goes to Shedeur Sanders. Right. And what's interesting is he is not the top prospect in this draft.
Right.
And yet, when you have franchises like the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New York Giants and now the New Orleans Saints, which have a Super Bowl ring and have this long tradition of Drew Brees and Archie Manning, quarterback matters in New Orleans. Is he now a must-have at number 9? It certainly makes it a lot more likely than if they said, well, we have a $40 million quarterback with 2 years left on the contract. We don't have to really, we don't have to take Shedeur Sanders. This at least makes that position far more urgent. Unless, and I want to hear everyone's thoughts on this.
Yeah.
You roll out Spencer Rattler, who played pretty well down the season last year, and you look at a certain player named Arch Manning, who is not available in this draft.
Oh, here we go.
But whose grandfather is the greatest New Orleans Saint and a patron of New Orleans, as I know Ryan Clark knows quite well.
That would be, I mean, look, that's the thing, but that's an awful long way from now to start planning on getting Arch Manning. RC, let me get a final word from you on this quickly. We'll come back to it.
Well, I don't really have much to say except for to Jeff. We weren't at the Masters, Jeff. And I know you said it 18 times. Well, I was at the Masters. 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 And I was at the Masters. We freaking get it. You were at the Masters. We weren't. You are cool. We are not. You saw Rory come back and make the putt. We did not. Congratulations, Jeff.
Yes.
Other
that's the
people
way
were doing football.
the reporting could sound. Jeff was like, and then Bryson DeChambeau turned to me and he said, and then I was sending a quick text here or there in the other place, and then, at that moment, anyway. So, all right, the bottom line of it, though, and it is important, is something is going on in New Orleans. We're not 100% sure what it is, and it could have a significant impact on sports as we try and figure out which quarterback is going to be the second one selected in this year's draft. We know Cam Ward is going to go number 1, but I want you to look at what's going on right now at ESPN Bet. 3 weeks ago, Shedeur Sanders was a runaway favorite to be the second quarterback selected. Look at that. He was minus 1,600. As of today, those odds have dropped to minus 225. And Jackson Dart's numbers continue creeping closer and closer. Suddenly, he's only plus 160, which begs the question, Peter Schrager, am I living in a world where a week from Thursday night, I might hear Roger Goodell say the name Jackson Dart before I hear him say the name Shedeur Sanders?
9 days out, I'd be very surprised if Jackson Dart went before Shedeur Sanders. However, this is becoming one of those drafts amongst the front office personnel I'm talking to. Cam Ward is one, and then it's pick your flavor. It's a little bit of Baskin Robbins. Are you looking for the big arm? That might be Tyler Shuck out of Louisville. Are you looking for the speedster out of the pocket? That could be Jalen Milroe, who, by the way, Greeny, was invited to attend the draft, which always raises my eyebrow.
And accepted.
And accepted it and will be there. Or if you like a big arm and maybe a guy who's got the years with the Ole Miss, Jackson Dart could be your guy, but I would still think Shedeur is number 2 off the board.
What are you hearing, Jeff?
Well, to me, the biggest question mark now is what happens at number 9 with the Saints. I think that changes the complexion of everything there, because if you are in love with Jackson Dart or Shedeur Sanders, it just, as we always know, it just takes one team. So is there a team that's going to want to jump ahead at 9, get ahead of the Saints to get their guy, since the veil of secrecy is out? I mean, we know that the Saints have to address that position at this point. So now, if you love Jackson Dart, are you going to jump ahead of 9 to get him? If you love Shedeur Sanders, are you going to do the same?
Yeah, that's really, and what I think is an interesting point to make here is when you read the mock drafts that we see all over the place, Mel is mocking Shedeur Sanders to go number 9, and every mock draft that you see has Shedeur ahead of Jackson Dart. That's the consensus, right? You guys are making 8 million phone calls. You're hearing from 8 million people, and probably